Hi everybody, I'm Rook. Welcome to the table. I have a Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed Duel deck profile for you here today. This one is geared towards the newer players. For those of you that haven't gotten a Speed Duel before and are looking to get in and build a deck on paper, maybe you've seen the format played as a side event at a YCS in the past. Maybe you've seen it played in your local card shop or even on a kitchen table, and you were interested in the format. Maybe you play regular Yu-Gi-Oh!, but you're not completely committed to Speed Duel, but at the same time, maybe you'd like a deck just to have on you so that if the opportunity arises, you can get a match of paper Speed Duel in with your friends. I have just the deck for you guys. It's easy to understand, it utilizes cards from a lot of the most recent sets, and it's cheap. I don't think I've seen a Speed Duel deck quite this cheap before. I went ahead and made a 20 card deck, put the singles together on TCG Player, and the total came to $9.59. Now I know what you're thinking, Rook. You probably just put together a bunch of garbage cards from a year ago that aren't meta anymore. Not true. The deck that I built was a Gaia the Fierce Knight and Knight of Legend skill deck. Very recent, with a lot of the cards coming out in the Match of the Millennium starter deck that came out in just May, which was the most recent product release for Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed Duel. Most cards are from those sets. So I'm going to go ahead and profile this for you guys today. If you're looking to put together a Speed Duel deck, but maybe not necessarily completely spend all your money on Speed Duel like you did on regular Yu-Gi-Oh!, but at the same time you want a deck just to play here and there, this is the deck for you. I'll start with the skill. This is a new skill that came out in the most recent starter decks. This is Yugi's Knight of Legend. This works very well with the Gaia the Fierce Knight card. This is a skill that you activate during your main phase. Each turn one Gaia the Fierce Knight, your normal summon can be summoned without tributing. So right there, Gaia the Fierce Knight is a 2300 attack monster, and this skill is saying that you can normal summon it without tributing. So this deck already has a lot of power behind it just by getting Gaia the Fierce Knight out. Apply the following skills while you control a Gaia the Fierce Knight monster or a Gaia the Dragon Champion monster. Gaia the Dragon Champion is the fusion monster, which we will not be using in this deck, but Gaia the Fierce Knight monster includes charging Gaia the Fierce Knight, which is another monster that came out recently that you will see in this deck. The skills are as follows. If your Gaia monster attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. Okay, so they're piercers. Once per turn, if it inflicts battle damage with this skill, you may draw 2 cards, then discard 1 card. Okay, so then this skill permanently on the field at all times. If you have a Gaia monster on the field and you're able to do piercing battle damage to a defense monster your opponent controls, you are getting to draw 2 cards. So there's your draw engine right there. The second skill is you cannot activate set cards in the spell and trap zone. So that's a downside to this skill, but it is one of the reasons why it makes it relatively cheap, because a lot of the money cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed Duel, I say money cards, but I really mean like what, $10, $15? A lot of the money cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed Duel are traps. So this deck doesn't utilize any traps, because with the Knight of Legend skill, you cannot activate set cards in the spell and trap zone. This deck is consisted primarily of monsters and quick play spells. Let's jump into the monsters. Let's start with Gaia the Fierce Knight. We have 3 Gaia the Fierce Knight. This is a normal 7-star monster that you can summon for free with no tribute thanks to the Knight of Legend skill. This is a 2300 attack monster and 2100 defense. To get this out on the field, turn 1, turn 2 is fantastic, and it puts a lot of board pressure on your opponent right away to try and have an answer for. You will want to run 3 Gaia the Fierce Knight. Moving on, we also have 3 Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight. This is also a 7-star monster. However, Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight is an effect monster with the text, you can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card is normal summoned without tributing, its original attack becomes 1900. So you're essentially normal summoning this monster as a 1900 monster on the field. The highest attack of a 4-star monster in the Speed Duel format right now is 1800 with cards like Gilgarth, and there are only a couple other 1900 attack 4-stars, one of them, for example, being Toon Gemini Elf. But Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight is going to be, aside from Gaia the Fierce Knight, the strongest monster that you'll be able to get out on the field without tributing. So 3 Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight. You will be normal summoning this most of the time, if not every time, so anticipate this to be a 1900 attack monster. The card effect goes on to explain an effect that involves Blackluster Soldier, but we do not have Blackluster Soldier in this deck. We're really just trying to get this card out as the 1900 attack beater. And of course, having Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight and Gaia the Fierce Knight as really strong monsters that we can get out without a tribute helps us get the other effects of Knight of Legend, where we can inflict piercing damage to defense monsters and we can get our draw. Moving on, here come the hand traps in the deck. This one looks familiar to all you new players out there. We have one Kuriboh. Kuriboh is a 1-star fiend that you're never really going to summon. Its effect is during damage calculation if your opponent's monster attacks. As a quick effect, you can discard this card and you take no battle damage. So this is a card that you're going to drop to the graveyard to avoid battle damage. I just run one Kuriboh because I run 2 of its counterparts that are a little stronger, the Sphere Kuriboh. Sphere Kuriboh is one of the strongest, if not the strongest hand trap in the Speed Duel format to date. The card reads, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard and change the attacking monster to defense position. So this one does not mess around with the battle damage like Kuriboh does. This one you drop to the graveyard when your opponent's monster declares an attack and they have to flip to defense, the attack does not happen. This is another great way to deflect attacks, and because this deck doesn't play nice with you setting traps, the Sphere Kuriboh and Kuriboh are great alternatives. And those were the monsters, and the rest of the cards we have are spells, starting with the Heat Wave. Run one Heat Wave in this particular deck. Heat Wave is at the start of your main phase 1. Neither player can normal or special summon effect monsters until your next draw phase. Heat Wave works very, very well if you have it on turn 1 and you have a Gaia the Fierce Knight, because Gaia, of course, is a normal monster, and when you play Heat Wave, your opponent isn't able to summon effect monsters on their turn. A lot of other decks that aren't Gaia are effect monster driven, so this can really set your opponent back a whole turn and allow you to ramp up. Get a second Gaia out on turn 2, you might have a chance for the game there. So run a Heat Wave. This deck only runs one in particular because we are also running 3 Charging Gaia, which is an effect monster. We definitely do not want to shoot ourselves in the foot and not be able to summon our Charging Gaia if we Heat Wave. And Heat Wave has to be played at the start of your main phase 1, so you can't summon your Charging Gaia and then Heat Wave. Moving on, we have 3 Offerings to the Doomed. These quick play spells are very good alternatives to traps. Offerings to the Doom is very plain and simple. Quick play spell, target one face-up monster on the field, destroy that target. Now you can activate these directly from your hand because they are quick play spells as long as it is your turn. The only downside to Offerings to the Doom is that you will skip your next draw phase. So if you need to Offerings to the Doom a monster that your opponent brings out that you know is going to be very hard to get over, make sure that you are 100% committed to skipping your next draw phase. That means that ensure what you have in your hand is going to be sufficient to get you through the next turn as well, even with that monster off the field. Next, we have 3 Summoner's Art. This one is a normal spell. Add 1 level 5 or higher normal monster from your deck to your hand. This is another way to get Gaia the Fierce Knight, of course. With 3 Summoner's Art, you essentially have 6 ways to get Gaia into your hand. 6 ways to get Gaia, which of course is the driver of this deck. We definitely want that as frequently as we can, so we run 3 Summoner's Art. It's also a great way to thin the deck. Next spell, another quick play spell, is Twister. For all you new players, Twister is a really good quick play spell right now. It's been in the Speed Duel format since last year, but recently with the release of the recent starter decks, the meta has shifted to using a lot of continuous face-up traps. So Twister is a great way to get rid of those, things like Nightmare Wheel and Zoma, and it is a quick play spell. Similar to Offerings to the Doom, you can play it right from your hand on your turn. It's not considered activating a set card in the spell trap zone because you didn't set it, you're playing it from your hand. So 2 Twister, there's your magic removal right there. In case you're going in with a Gaia the Fierce Knight and your opponent tries to spring a Nightmare Wheel on you, you do have the Twister, get rid of that, and that attack will go through. And then the final card is the Sword of Dragon's Soul. You equip it to a warrior monster and it gains 700 attack. Gaia the Fierce Knight with a Sword of Dragon's Soul brings it up to 3000 attack. That is a monster that can even battle with the mighty Blue Eyes White Dragon itself. If the equipped monster battled a dragon monster, destroy that monster at the end of the battle phase. Another equipped card you could run would be something like Bashing Shield, which is just a little more expensive, but Bashing Shield essentially gives a monster 1000 attack instead of Sword of Dragon's Soul's 700. But with Sword of Dragon's Soul, Gaia the Fierce Knight would be at 3000, Charging Gaia would be at 2600, which is more than enough to beat over pretty much any monster your opponent's going to get out on you. The only monsters you may not be able to beat over with this combo are cards like Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, which of course Sword of Dragon's Soul would still kill, or a card like Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth, but hey, that's what the Offerings to the Doomed is there for. And that is the under $10 Gaia the Fierce Knight deck for new Speed Duel players that want to get into the format from a paper standpoint. If you still aren't entirely sure if you want to play the format, I would recommend going onto a site like Dueling Book where all the cards are there for free and you can play. But as remote dueling is becoming more popular, maybe you want to pick up a paper version of the deck just so you have it in case your card shop is running a series of remote duel tournaments and maybe they have a Speed Duel event. Definitely recommend picking this up to get started. And if you have a local card shop that has Speed Duel product, maybe they have Speed Duel singles, you would be able to pick this up without the shipping costs. So the items total $9.59, calculated US shipping comes to just under $14, but a really, really great bang for your buck, and there's your deck to play with your friends. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did like it, please feel free to hit the like button. If you'd like to support me in any other way, I did recently release a sticker of my logo that is on my Etsy store. It is $2.50 with free shipping to the United States. I really make no money on that. My margins are razor thin. I'm just excited that you want one. I've included the link in the description below. Thanks for your support, and I'll catch you later.